whenever I teach a new topic, the first thing I like to do is explain what that concept is. Okay, so this is the first class that I'm looking at, angles. So the first thing I'm going to do is explain what an angle is. What is an angle? So before you solve questions on angles, you should know what an angle is, right? So if you don't know what an angle is and then you're solving questions on angles, it doesn't make sense. So what is an angle? An angle is a geometrical figure that is formed where two lines meet. So that is what an angle is. An angle is a geometrical figure that is formed where two lines meet. So let's look at two lines here. So if I have a line coming this way and I have a line going this way, both lines meet at this point. So when these two lines meet here, they form an angle. But the angles that are formed here, they are divided into two angles. We have an angle here, which is the interior angle. And then we have an angle here, which is the exterior. So where these two lines meet each other, two angles are produced. The angle within is the interior angle. The angle outside is called the exterior angles or exterior angle. So whenever you see two lines meeting at the point, you should always watch out for the interior angle and the exterior angle of that line. Okay. So what I'm going to do in this first class is to do a quick introduction into angles. Angles are measured in degrees. Angles are measured in degrees. Angles are basically measured in degrees. For example, you can have an angle 60 degrees. So the sign here is degrees. You can have an angle 100 degrees. So basically, angles are measured in degrees. Next, we're going to look at some types of angles. Types of angles. So let's look at some types of angles. Okay, types of angles. The first type of angle we have is acute angle. Acute angle. What is an acute angle? An acute angle is an angle that is less than 90 degrees. So any angle that is less than 90 degrees is called an acute angle. Angles that are less than 90 degrees are called acute angles. For example, if I have an angle 45, this is an acute angle because it's less than 90 degrees. If I have 89 degrees, this is an acute angle because it's less than 90 degrees. What about 1 degree? 1 degree is an acute angle. However, 0 degrees is not an acute angle. 0 degrees is not an acute angle. Why is 0 degrees not an acute angle? 0 is not an angle, okay? It means that you only have one line. Whenever you have two lines meeting at a point, the angle between them cannot be 0. So 0 is not an acute angle, okay? The next type of angle we have is right angle. So a right angle is exactly 90 degrees. Right angle is equal to 90 degrees. Not less than 90 degrees, not more than 90 degrees, exactly 90 degrees. So if you're asked, give examples of a right angle, you don't have more than one example of a right angle because a right angle is exactly 90 degrees. You can give different examples of an acute angle because any angle less than 90 degrees qualifies to be called an acute angle. but for a right angle, you just have 90 degrees. Okay. The next type of angle we are going to look at is obtuse angle. More than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. So an obtuse angle is an angle that is more than 90 degrees, but it is also less than 180 degrees. So examples, let's give 3 examples. 91 degrees is an obtuse angle because it's more than 90 degrees. 153 degrees is an obtuse angle because it's more than 90 degrees but less than 180 degrees. How about 181 degrees? 181 degrees is not an obtuse angle. Why is it not an obtuse angle? It is not because it is more than 180 degrees. Yes, it is more than 90 degrees, but it shouldn't be more than 180 degrees. That means 181 is not an obtuse angle. So let's replace it with 179. So 179 qualifies to be called an obtuse angle because it is more than 90 degrees, but less than 180 degrees. Okay, so we've looked at 3 types of angles. We've looked at the acute angle, the right angle, and now we've considered the obtuse angle. Let's look at the next one. So number 4 type of angle is the straight angle. The straight angle. So the straight angle is exactly 180 degrees. Not more than 180 degrees, not less than 180 degrees. It's exactly 180 degrees. So that's called a straight angle. So let's look at it. So if I have a line like this, and let's assume there's a point here, the angle from here to here, this entire angle is 180 degrees. So because it is a straight line, that's why it is called a straight angle. Let's confirm. If you have a vertical line like this part of it is going to give you 90 degrees. This part of it is going to give you 90 degrees. When you add them together, you are going to get 180 degrees. So a straight angle is exactly 180 degrees. Okay. Next, we have a reflex angle. Number 5. Okay, so a reflex angle is an angle that is more than 180 degrees, but less than 360 degrees. A reflex angle is more than 180 degrees, but less than 360 degrees. Okay. Earlier, we've talked about the interior angles and exterior angles. Exterior angles are always reflex angles. Okay, so whenever you see an exterior angle, they are most likely reflex angles. For example, if you have 2 lines, and if this is 60 degrees, this other side of it, this exterior angle, is going to be a reflex angle because it's going to be more than 180 degrees. So exterior angles are always reflex angles. Okay, let's look at some examples of exterior angles. You have 181 degrees is a reflex angle because it is more than 180 degrees. 290 degrees is an example of a reflex angle. Also, 358 degrees is a reflex angle. So any angle that is more than 180 degrees but less than 360 degrees qualifies to be called a reflex angle. Okay, and then number 6. So this is the next type of angle, which is called a revolution. A revolution is equal to 360 degrees. A revolution is exactly 360 degrees. So a revolution is equal to 360 degrees. So if you have a point here, the angle it takes to go around this point is 360 degrees, which is also called a revolution. Okay, remember in science, we are taught that the earth revolves around the sun. Revolves, revolution, so means to go around. So the angle that is formed when you go around a point is 360 degrees. So that's why it is called a revolution. So we have looked at the different types of angles. Remember, in today's class, we are looking at introduction to angles.